All right. Again, as I said earlier, kia ora koutou. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon for this webinar. This is a part of the Growing Connections and Confidence webinar series that are held weekly on Wednesdays, 3:30 p.m, terms 2 and 3 for this year. And it's all about supporting teachers and kaiako in the health and physical education learning area. So this is jointly it's a joint collaboration between Education Outdoors New Zealand, Physical Education New Zealand, New Zealand Health Education Association and Sport New Zealand, and in particular the Healthy Active Learning team through Sport New Zealand. So it's a privilege today to welcome you all here, but in particular to welcome our presenters, Zach Brown and Adelaide Gwynne from Nuku. So Zach is a Healthy Active Learning advisor and Adelaide is a community connector with that organisation, and really looking forward to their kōrero today on how you can leverage off your school values to really support learning in the health and PE curriculum. So welcome, Zach and Adelaide, and I will hand it over to you. Thanks so much.
Kia ora, Celia, thank you.
Kia ora koutou. We will just open with a karakia timatanga. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki waho, tuia ki roto, tuia ki te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, haumie, huie, tai ki e.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Penigant te Moonga, ko Darwin te Awa, no Ingarangi ahau, ko Whanganui te Ara te Moana, ko Nuku takamahi, ko Zach Brown tukuingua, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Hi everyone, my name is Zach, originally from a place called Blackburn in England, and my background is in PE teaching, and as Celia said, I'm a Healthy Active Learning Advisor at Nuku.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko ngā kohatu whakarikarika o tamatia pukai whenua te puke, ko Ōtautahi te Awa, ko Adelaide tōku ingoa, I whānau au I Ōtautahi, I ngā rei kei pōni ki ahau, e noho ana I naenei, he Healthy Active Learning Community Connected taku mahi ki Nuku ora. Kia ora everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Adelaide, I'm originally from Ōtautahi, Christchurch. My background is health promotion, and I am a Healthy Active Learning Community Connector.
So welcome to our presentation on teaching school values through physical activity. We just wanted to quickly acknowledge that this workshop or session was originally designed to be kanohi ki te kanohi, or face-to-face. Although we're online, we've designed our presentation to be as interactive as possible. So please do interact when those opportunities arise, whether it's using the chat function. We've got a few links and things that we're using as part of this as well, because we're going to really feed off your energy today.
Awesome. So first up, we just have a little interactive activity for you all. And this is just to see what sort of values you have within your respective schools or organisations, and then how these are brought to life or applied. So there's a few different ways that you can do this. You can scan the QR code down the bottom, you can click the link, or then you can just go to the webpage www.menti.com, which is at the top, and then you use the code as well, and you'll see there it will come up with a little boxes, and you can enter in your values there. And once you've submitted those, we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then that will create sort of like a word picture. So the more times, say, cooperation is entered across the platform, the bigger that word will be. So we can look at that at the end, and no doubt there will be quite a few similarities there. So if everyone can jump on and start entering their values, that would be awesome. And if you've got any issues, just chuck it in the chat, or maybe like use the reaction to do the hand waving thing. Cool, so we've just clicked as well. There's a little link there that says see results. So at the end as well, or as you're going, you can also click on that, and all the different values that have been entered, you'll be able to see. So we've got honesty, perseverance, respect, responsibility, manaakitanga, pono, excellence, whanaungatanga, tika, aroha, and I'm sure there's a lot more coming in as we speak. Yeah, very cool. Respect is the biggest word at the moment. Cooperation, excellent, mahitahi. Just give you a little bit more to get those values in. Cool. And so what, for those of you that have already put your values in, could you just put down in the chat as well, the next part of this is just how are some, you can just list one way or an example of how that value, one of your values or all your values are brought to life within your school or organization. Just an example for people to see. But yeah, just chuck that in the chat. So if you also click as well, see results, you will be able to see all the different values that have come up. So respect is still the biggest one. Resilience, equity, supporting communities, team, inclusion, heaps of really cool ones there. Fun, sustainability. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can see from those values as well, there are some people that belong to schools and there's some that belong to organisations as well. So that's cool that we've got a mixture in our audience. This just shows a few examples of what values can look like at different schools and organisations. You can see that in the bottom right corner, one of these schools that I found does it in quite a visual way. You can see each of the values interlocking, which is really cool to see that they're all connected in one way or another. Some schools or organisations go into real detail about what each value means, which is the example in the top left-hand side. There's quite a big description of what each value looks like at their particular school. I've seen an example with one of our healthy active learning schools where they've broken down each of the school values about what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, even in different parts of the school. So they had what, for example, what respect might look like in the school hall, what it might look like in the classroom, what it might look like out in the playground as well. So you can really go quite deep and detail with it, or you can keep it quite broad in the example of the one in the bottom right. These are values-based behaviours that we abide by at Nuku. So we're a little bit different. Obviously, we're a regional sports trust. One of the reasons why we use these values-based behaviours is to cater for the broad range of roles that people have within our organisation. Obviously, with schools, you know, everyone's sort of in that school working towards the tamariki, and there's teachers make up the majority, but in Nuku we have a huge variety of roles in our organisation, so it does cater for all of those. Another advantage of using behaviours is that we can all demonstrate these behaviours in our mahi, but without sacrificing our own personal values. So that is an advantage of using behaviours. So just thought I'd share that one as something a little bit different. And then I guess to answer our own question, how we bring these behaviours to life is when we have our team meetings, we apply these when we celebrate success within the team. So for example, I might acknowledge Adelaide for Ngā Tahitanga because she supported me to plan and deliver a PE workshop last week. That's one example of how we bring ours to life. Schools often bring values to life, even either in assemblies, or it could be at lunchtime on the playground. It could be in the classroom. You know, you might have official systems to acknowledge them. So there's lots and lots of ways to bring values to the forefront in your school or organisation.
Cool. So we have another interactive activity for you all. So up on the left, you'll see there we have 8 different sports. And down below, we have boxes that are numbered, and then they have a set of values. So each box with the values is related to a different sport. So it's a little bit of a quiz to see who can match up the correct sports to the correct values. So if you just grab a piece of paper, or you can type on your laptop or even on your phone, you just need to type in, just make some notes and type in like cricket and box 5 or whatever you think it is. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and then we will go through the answers with you and we'll have a look at who got the most correct. All right.
Good luck.
Cool, so we'll just give you another 45 seconds and then we'll go through the answers.
Just on that 2 minutes. Go.
Alrighty, time is up. So no cheating, please. We're trusting you all to be very honest. Hope that's a key value for you. Cool, so there we go. Netball is box number 1. New Zealand rugby number 2. Wellington basketball is number 3. World cricket 4. Hockey is 5. Football 6. The Olympics 7 and Paralympics 8. So just quickly add up your scores out of 8, and can you please just pop them into the chat box? No one put any examples of how your values are brought to life in the chat box, so can you please put them in for this activity? We'll give you like 30 seconds just to do that now.
Thank you for being honest. We're genuinely interested to see how many people would know, because it's very relevant to what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, 0 out of 8. Yeah, I'm with you, Lewis. I didn't get any correct, so don't worry.
I mean, I did the answers and I probably still wouldn't get 8 out of 8 if I'd have done it now.
Yay, Dean. 1. Awesome. Cool. All right. So this sort of leads into Zach's next slide.
Thank you, Emily, as well, for submitting. Oh, I'm sorry, Levi. I guess values do all relate to each other. These values could actually be part of any sport, so that is a relevant point that you've made there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to know after that. I mean, the scores is a good indicator, but I'd like to know if you think the values of sport are taught enough to our tamariki and rangatahi. The way you can answer this is just next to that chat button. There's a button called reactions, and from there you should be able to select a few different emojis. If you think that values of sport are taught enough, then you can use the thumb. and it should just float up on the screen. If you do not think they are taught enough, then you can use the red heart to answer that question as well. So what do you think? Oh, there we go. We've got some answers coming through.
We haven't had one thumbs up so far. Yeah, all the
Yeah,
hearts.
Kimiora, I can see that you said no.
Yeah, cool.
Have we got a clean slate? Is there anyone that thinks values of sport are taught enough? We'll keep an eye out if any thumbs come floating up on that screen. But it seems like it's a bit of a whitewash. There were at least 5 or 6 red hearts to say that values of sport aren't taught enough. Now, I would agree with that personally, because from my personal experience, even designing the trivia, I found it quite difficult to locate a lot of the values for each of those sports codes. You know, they weren't at the front and center on the home page of the website. Some of them were quite hidden away in policy documents. Some of them might even be outdated because some of the documents I found were a few years old. So it was quite surprising to me that the values of each sport weren't obvious enough. For me, I've played football for 25 years, and I honestly couldn't name you the values of football until I looked at these answers as well. So yeah, it's very interesting about linking the values to sport. Yeah, Kimiora, you're the same, but with netball. I'm sure there'll be many others that might play cricket, rugby, hockey, that I'd be surprised if you knew the values. And if you did, then I'd actually be really impressed that the values are being brought through in sports training. Yeah. The second question we've got is, do any of the sports values align with your school or organizational values? So if I just flick back very quickly, a few minutes ago, you entered your organization or school values. Are there any there that you can see that match up? If there are, just pop it in the chat. That'd be quite cool to see. Whilst you're having a look, I'll give you an example. So let's say that resilience was a value of Nuku. We can see that resilience is also a value of football. So one idea of teaching the value of resilience is actually through football. Football could be the context, and that's how we could teach one of your school values or organizational values, such as resilience. For any teachers online here, that's also a good question. If anyone gets external providers in from any of these sports codes in your region, then that's actually quite a valid question to ask them. From my experience, only the physical skills are taught as part of a sports program in a school. So it could be a cool question to ask, well, are you able to teach the values of character, leadership, teamwork, resilience if I was to get a football provider into my school? Because for me, the values of the sport are just as important as the physical skills. Wow, Emily, 3 values. You got lots of context ideas to teach those. That's brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Sandy. That's awesome as well. So there's definitely a place for sport when we're teaching values in school as well. I'm not trying to discount that at all, but it'd be really cool if we could actually bring the values of games and of sports to life when we're teaching those in schools as well. Right, moving on. So we'd love to show you an example of how you can teach different values through the same game or activity. It doesn't have to be a sport. Now, if we were doing this as a practical face-to-face workshop as originally planned, we get to play this game. But we've created a video. So rather than me trying to explain the game and using lots of pictures and words, we've made a quick video that we'll watch in a minute. So this was something that I've done at one of my healthy active learning schools. I found there 5 values, and we taught 3 of those values through the same game. So the example of the value we've got there is everyone together, and then the context is fruit market. So it's just really important to set that learning focus at the beginning of the lesson, that the focus of this session is for everyone to demonstrate the value of everyone together. And then we can set some success criteria after that, and the students could actually come up with this. So we could ask, well, what will everyone together look like whilst we're playing this game? And they might come up with examples such as taking turns, encouraging each other, playing fairly, being respectful. And then after we've played the game, that's when we can reflect on how well we demonstrated that value as well, just to bring that focus back around. This is nothing out of the ordinary. This is just standard teaching, but just to show you the way that we've used it in a lesson context before. So let's have a look at how the video works, and I want you to keep your eyes out for examples of how the different values were shown in the game. these were our colleagues at Nuku that very kindly stepped in, so appreciate their help. All right, so yeah, we went through 3 values in that same game. The first value was everyone together. So some examples of what we saw in that video was clapping teammates, encouraging each other, and there was a really cool example of fair play at the end there, where one of the players let somebody from an opposing team go first. The second value feature was akohia, with everybody learning. Obviously, it was Samoan Language Week last week, so we changed the focus to learning the names of different colours in Samoan as well. So you could see a bit of lip syncing going on with the player's name in the different colours. And then third and finally, this is why we chose that soundtrack, Dean, I'm glad you're a fan, was Never Give Up, which is why we chose Rick Astley. So that was another value of Dyer Street School, one of my healthy active learning schools. So we changed the activity slightly. Instead of trying to hit coloured cones or markers, we were trying to hit hula hoops, and the distance got bigger and bigger as they went along. And then the idea was not to give up. So you could see at the end there, the yellow team didn't give up. They completed the task, and then we really emphasised that that was a success because that was the whole focus of the lesson. So yeah, just showing how different values can actually be brought by teaching the same game.
Cool. So if you've been teaching for a while, you probably remember the Kiwi Dex or the Sport Start resources. I'm hoping that most of you will have seen, and if not, be using the new Move Well resource. So this resource is the latest one, and it's been developed by Sport NZ, Physical Education New Zealand, and the Ministry of Education. It's less prescriptive than previous resources, and it does have a really cool mixture of activities where students can learn through exploring and leading play, but then some more traditional games and activities that can be teacher-led. So what I want you to do is, if you can all click on your screens over the Move Well graphic, the red area with the white text saying Move Well, and that should take you to a link. That is the full booklet online version. I'm just going to give you like 10-20 seconds to all do that. Cool. So I'm just assuming, I know mics are off, but I'm just assuming that we've all done that, and we're now all looking at the online version of the Move Well resource. So what I want you to do from here is to press Control F on your keyboard, and it will come up with a wee search panel on the right hand side of your screen. Just waiting, making sure everyone's got it. It's really hard to know.
It's difficult to know, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So as you can see there, it's a wee search function. So this is awesome for finding games and activities that can be used to teach certain values. And the same goes for certain skills, so like maybe throwing, catching, whatever it is. Obviously for this we're focusing on the values, so we're going to do an activity or a search together. So if everyone can type in cooperation please into the search panel, and then you just press enter. And you will see once you've typed it in that the word cooperation appears in the book 25 times. So what you can do is you just use the little arrows. There's an up or a down arrow. Don't scroll with your mouse or your like mouse pad. Just use these wee arrows to navigate up and down, because it will take you directly to where these words are mentioned. So as we can see, if we use the down arrow 4 times, it takes us to the team tail tag. And in the wee description there, it says it also works to build team cooperation. So we know straight away on page 32, there's a game, team tail tag, and we can use this game to teach cooperation. Awesome. I'm assuming everyone's got that and seen that, and it's worked well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get you all to take the cooperation word out of the search panel and put in one of your school or organisational values and hit search. And I just want you to find an example of a game or activity that you could use to teach that value, and then I want you to chuck that in the chat. So for example, if you search respect, you would type respect and then just put the name of the game that you found that you could teach that through. I'll just give you like 30 seconds to do that. Cool. So something as well that we thought we'd just bring up is that obviously this is an English resource. There is no real in it. So unfortunately you might have to, if I know lots of values will be in te reo, which is awesome. But you may, what we found best is if you just sort of roughly translate them as best you can to an English word, then you'd still be able to find something that can teach that value. So for example, it might be kotahitanga, and that could be teamwork or cooperation. Awesome. Yeah, so we've got some really cool examples coming through there. And I hope as well this is going to be like a really easy tool for you guys to use. I know it can be quite a lot of work sometimes putting together a lesson plan, or just, you know, working out how you're going to teach something, that this can make it really, really easy for you all. And thanks for putting those all in the chat. Really appreciate it. Yeah, the search function is awesome, eh?
It really is a game changer. And I think there is a Move Well workshop as well in a couple of weeks as part of this series. So if you're interested in finding out a bit more about Move Well, there is a session available for that.
Cool.
Okay, so we've covered what values can look like in a single activity or a single lesson. So we just wanted to show what it might look like over a full term or a full unit of health and PE. And there's 2 examples, or 3 examples actually, that we've featured. We talk a lot about concept versus context. So one example of how this works is that the concept or the value remains constant for the full unit. So our example there is cooperation or mahitahi, kotahitanga. That stays the focus for the full term, yet the context can change each week. So I've got examples of different contexts that can be used. If we were again to link back to the Move Well resource, we could work our way through the cooperative game section. So each week we play a new cooperative game, but the value focus or the concept, that stays the same, and we keep reinforcing that. From personal experience, something around cooperation and teamwork is needed over a full term as well. It probably can't be taught and ticked off in just the lesson. So that's one way that it can work. Another way that it could work is context-based. So you might keep the same context for the unit, for example, striking and fielding activities, but within that, it could also be a sport actually as well. Within that, you could work your way through the different values of each sport. So we had, I think, 4 values for football and rugby and netball, etc. You might focus on a different value of that sport for a week or 2 at a time, but the context is actually staying the same. So you might be keeping the activity the same with a few progressions, obviously. One final alternative way of doing it is actually using Te Whare Tapawhā, and I've done this myself. So for the first couple of weeks, you might have the pillar of taha tinana, so actually learning the physical skills needed, which might be throwing and catching. Then you might do a couple of weeks on taha whānau and have a teamwork strategy type focus. Hinengaro, controlling emotions. And then once you've got all that and you might be playing some full games towards the end of the term, then your focus can turn to taha wairua, playing in the spirit of the game. So there's lots of ways that we can plan around values for a full term or unit. And the context base we've covered quite well with Fruit Market as well. That's one example of how we can plan context based.
Awesome. So up next, we're just going to talk and share with you a really cool example from one of our Healthy Active Learning schools of how they have taught values through physical activity. So Randwick School values are implemented into most things that they do. The students are aware of the values and they understand what they look like when they're displaying these. So they decided to try out a Paralympics Values Day where the students worked together to complete different stations set up over the school. And each station had a value that related to it or matched the activity. And to reflect the Paralympics focus, they completed the stations, but with some sort of physical limitation. So you'll see with the picture in the middle of the student there, he's using his elbow to draw on a card. So the activity was that they had to create a card for a whānau or a friend, a whānau member or a friend, but they couldn't use their hands. So quite cool, him using his elbow there. And just down the bottom as well, you'll see there's a full story link on our website, a video and a highlights link, and then a link to the planning document if you did want to click those, but we will just show you the video now. Cool. So really awesome to see all those photos there. So as you'll see, this is a really cool way of how you can implement those values into an event or just in general into your school. What I really like about this as well is that when you change the focus to a values focus, you change the whole event from a competition-based event to a participation event. So because it's based on values, it actually means everyone has an equal chance to be involved and to succeed versus, you know, if it's who can throw the furthest or run the fastest, there's only a small amount of students that are going to do really well there and feel like they've really contributed to that day and done well. So this is really cool to see. You'll see a few wee quotes there. One from a teacher: getting kids to appreciate disability and inclusion was the highlight for me. And a student said, I love the challenge of doing things in a difficult way. So yeah, really cool to see that at Randwick School.
All right, apologies about the words on this, but I thought this would be quite interesting to include. So this is how a school has taken that values approach to planning over a whole year. We've covered a single activity, we've looked at over a term. This is what it might look like over a whole year. So we sat down with this lead teacher late last year to look at their long-term health and PE plan, and they already had a values focus that changed each term. So what they did was just highlight the indicators that best suited a health and PE context. And then you can just see sort of the order that we've done it in as well. We've got students' needs right at the top, followed by values. Then we've linked to the curriculum, and then underneath that, the context have fallen quite naturally from the above columns, or the above rows, should I say, rather than actually fitting in a context and then trying to fit the values around what we're already doing. The context ideas came quite easy because we already knew what the concept focus was and what our student needs were. We have acknowledged about the what's on row in terms of the inter-school sports types events and calendar events, because we understand they absolutely have a factor in terms of what goes on in the school year, but we didn't want to make that the determining factor, so we've put those more towards the bottom of the calendar. So that was a really cool way of actually planning around values for a full year. We are able to share a template for that as well if anyone's interested.
Awesome. So that does wrap up our session for today. We finished a bit early. We really hope that you've taken a lot from this and that you have some practical ideas of how you can implement values into your school. We would really love some feedback. We're not going to force you, but if you do have a couple minutes spare, it would be awesome if you could just either click the wee feedback link in blue or just scan the QR code there on the screen. Before we go, does anyone have any partai or anything you just want to bring up or discuss with us while we are on screen? Feel free to unmute and turn your camera on, or you can pop a question in the chat if you like. Thank you, Darren. No worries. Alan, thank you so much for joining, everyone. Just wait for the rest to stop typing. Cool. Awesome. Cool. Well, we will leave it there, although I do see Dean and Camilla typing. But Zach will just finish us off with a karakia whakamutunga today.
Unuhia ki te uru tapanui. Kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua I te ara takata. Ko ia rā e rongo whakairea ake ki runga kia tīna.
Tina.
Hui
Hi. Kia ora.
Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks Celia, I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, kia ora, Zach and Adelaide. Thanks so much for your kōrero today. Thanks everyone for joining and contributing. It was great to see the interaction happening on the chat. So really appreciate you bringing that energy on a Wednesday afternoon in the middle of the term. I know it's getting tough for all the teachers out there. And as the weather gets colder, as the flu arrives and colds arrive, and communities still impacted by COVID as well. So just really appreciate you engaging with this content, and really would encourage you, if you've not been able to make any of the previous ones, to go on and check out the recordings, and also go and have a look and see what's coming up over the next few weeks and next term as well. But yeah, just another big thank you to Zach and Adelaide. Really appreciate you sharing that that awesome mahi and the great work that you're doing with your schools and that they're implementing. I know this values-based teaching and learning through PE can be a real game changer for so many. So thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Ka kite.
Awesome. Ka kite.
Ka kite.